The holographic projection flickered with an ominous intensity, casting harsh shadows across the research chamber. Sigma-9 loomed like a nightmare made real, a planet that had become the graveyard of countless exploration missions. Captain Marcus Reyes studied the terrain with an intensity that made the alien scientists uncomfortable. They had seen his type before, humans with an inexplicable determination that bordered on madness. Dr. Zaravax, the lead xenogeologist from the Centauri Research Collective, tapped a series of translucent data streams that danced around the hologram. Her multiple eyes narrowed as she reviewed the mission parameters. The survival probability is less than 0.03%, she announced, her translator rendering the words with clinical precision. No sentient species has survived more than 12 standard hours on Sigma-9's surface. The planet's surface was a canvas of environmental hostility. Crystalline mountain ranges shifted like living razors, their edges capable of slicing through the most advanced protective suits. Toxic atmospheric currents swirled with particles that could dissolve organic matter in moments. Electromagnetic storms created zones of total communication blackout, while underground geological activities generated unpredictable energy surges that could neutralize technological systems in milliseconds. Marcus didn't flinch. He had spent years preparing for this mission, studying every fragment of data, every failed expedition report, every microscopic piece of information retrieved from previous attempts. Where others saw certain death, he sought an opportunity to understand the unknown. The mission briefing continued, each alien representative presenting their dire predictions. Representatives from 12 different galactic civilizations had gathered to witness what they believed would be another futile human attempt at exploration. The Quantum Diplomatic Council had specifically chosen Marcus, knowing his reputation for unconventional approaches. The planet's ecosystem is not just hostile, explained Professor Krell from the Xenobiological Research Institute. It's actively adaptive. Each previous expedition has been systematically dismantled by environmental responses that suggest an almost intelligent defensive mechanism. His holographic tendrils shifted with agitation. It's as if the planet itself is a living entity designed to reject any form of external exploration. Marcus studied the rotating hologram, his fingers tracing the complex geological patterns. He saw something the others missed: intricate connections, subtle rhythms in the seemingly chaotic landscape. The planet wasn't just a death trap. It was a puzzle waiting to be understood. The research chamber fell silent as the final mission parameters were displayed. The equipment manifest was extensive: custom-designed sensors, adaptive environmental suits with multi-layered protection systems, experimental communication modules that could potentially interface with unknown energy signatures. Each piece of technology represented years of human innovation, designed specifically to challenge the impossible. Dr. Vax approached Marcus, her translucent skin shifting colors, a physiological response to professional curiosity. "Your species continues to surprise us," she said, her translator rendering the words with a mixture of respect and bewilderment. "Other civilizations would have abandoned this mission generations ago." Marcus smiled, a gesture that seemed to unsettle the alien observers. "Understanding requires risk," he responded. "Every impossible challenge is just an invitation to expand our knowledge." The final countdown began. 12 advanced civilizations watched, their sensors prepared to document what they believed would be another tragic exploration attempt. The ship's systems hummed with potential, its human captains seated at the controls, ready to face a planet that had systematically destroyed every previous attempt at exploration. As the launch sequence initiated, Marcus felt something beyond professional determination. This was more than a mission. This was humanity's chance to prove that exploration was not about survival, but about understanding. Sigma-9 had defeated countless species, but it had not yet encountered human determination. The ship lifted, cutting through the protective energy barriers of the research station. Outside the viewports, the infinite darkness of space waited, with Sigma-9 rotating like a beautiful deadly jewel, promising challenge, danger, and the ultimate test of human capability. The landing sequence was nothing like any previous planetary descent. Sigma-9's atmosphere churned with impossible geometries, creating turbulence that would have destroyed conventional spacecraft. Marcus's custom-designed vessel cut through the chaos with calculated precision, its adaptive hull shifting molecular structures to resist the planet's relentless environmental attacks. Sensor arrays screamed with warning signals. Electromagnetic disruptions created visual distortions that made the outside world look like a kaleidoscope of crystalline nightmares. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly, from absolute zero to plasma-level heat within microseconds. Any standard life support system would have failed instantly. Marcus's hands moved with practiced calm across the control interfaces. Each movement was a calculated response, anticipating the planet's attempts to reject his presence. The ship's advanced AI worked in perfect synchronization, translating environmental data into survival strategies that rewrote existing exploration protocols. As the vessel touched down, the ground itself seemed to react. Crystalline formations around the landing site began to shift and pulse, creating patterns that defied conventional understanding of geological behavior. It was as if the planet was examining the intruder, probing for weaknesses. The first external scan revealed a landscape that was more alive than any previously documented ecosystem. What appeared to be rock formations were actually complex organic-inorganic hybrid structures that responded to temperature, electromagnetic radiation, and physical pressure. Each movement was calculated, purposeful, suggesting an intelligence far beyond simple planetary mechanics. Marcus's environmental suit was a marvel of human engineering. Multilayered adaptive materials could instantly reconfigure to meet changing environmental conditions. Microscopic technological networks woven into the fabric could analyze and respond to threats at speeds that would make standard computational systems seem primitive. He stepped outside, and the first breath was a symphony of scientific wonder. The atmosphere wasn't just toxic, it was a complex communication network of molecular interactions. Each particle carried information, creating a living environment that responded to every movement, every breath. The creature appeared without warning. It didn't emerge from a hiding place. It didn't stalk or approach conventionally. Instead, it seemed to coalesce from the very landscape, its form shifting between multiple states of matter. One moment, it was a collection of crystalline structures. The next, it displayed organic characteristics that defied biological classification. Multiple sensory organs, if they could be called organs, studied Marcus with a complexity that suggested more than simple predatory instinct. The beam structure was a living paradox. Crystalline appendages moved with a fluidity that suggested neural networks far more advanced than any known biological system. Energy patterns danced across its surface, creating communication signatures that no existing xenobiological database could interpret. Marcus remained perfectly still. Years of training had taught him that first contact was about observation, not confrontation. Every movement, every breath was a potential communication signal. The suit's advanced sensors began collecting data at rates that would take years to fully analyze. The creature's response was unexpected. Instead of attacking, it began to create complex geometric patterns in the surrounding environment. Crystalline formations shifted, creating three-dimensional representations that seemed to be some form of communication. Marcus recognized the mathematical precision. This was a language, not a random environmental response. His communication modules began to interpret the patterns, not as words or traditional language, but as a complex series of informational exchanges. Each geometric shift carried multiple layers of meaning: environmental data, spatial information, and something that bordered on emotional communication. The alien observers watching through long-range sensors were stunned. What should have been a moment of certain destruction had transformed into the most complex first contact scenario in galactic history. Marcus wasn't just surviving. He was establishing communication with a life form that existed beyond traditional understanding. Hours passed. The creature continued its intricate display, and Marcus responded with his own carefully calculated movements. It was a dance of scientific exploration, each participant studying the other with an intensity that suggested mutual curiosity rather than predatory intent. As the first planetary rotation completed, Marcus had already collected more scientific data than all previous expeditions combined. The creature remained nearby, not as a threat, but as a participant in an unprecedented exchange of understanding. Sigma-9 had defeated countless exploration attempts, but it had never encountered human determination, a force that transformed impossible challenges into opportunities for connection. The communication process was nothing like traditional scientific models. Marcus discovered that survival on Sigma-9 wasn't about resisting the environment. It was about becoming part of its intricate system. Each moment was a delicate negotiation between human technology and the planet's living intelligence. His communication modules began to reveal layers of complexity that challenged everything known about interspecies interaction. The creature, if it could be called a creature, wasn't a single entity, but a complex network of interconnected energy patterns and molecular structures. Its communication transcended traditional linguistic boundaries, existing simultaneously as mathematical equations, environmental responses, and something that bordered on pure information exchange. Marcus carefully documented every interaction. Microscopic recording devices woven into his environmental suit captured data at quantum resolution. Each movement, each subtle shift in the surrounding environment, became a piece of a massive informational puzzle. The suit's advanced analytical systems worked in overdrive, processing information at speeds that would have overwhelmed any previous technological approach. The planetary environment responded to their interaction in ways that defied conventional scientific understanding. Crystalline formations would shift and restructure, creating complex geometric patterns that seemed to carry multiple layers of meaning. Temperature gradients would adjust, electromagnetic fields would pulse, and the very molecular composition of the surrounding landscape would transform in response to their communication. What Marcus realized was that survival wasn't about conquering the environment. It was about understanding its fundamental language. The creature wasn't a single being but a complex ecosystem of interconnected intelligence. Each of its apparent appendages was both a sensory organ and a communication node, capable of processing and transmitting information across multiple dimensional planes. His background in xenobiology proved crucial. Where other explorers would have seen a threat, Marcus saw a complex system of communication. He began to develop a method of interaction that went beyond traditional scientific protocols. It wasn't about sending messages, it was about creating a shared understanding. The environmental suit became more than protective gear. It transformed into a communication interface, its adaptive technologies learning and responding to the planet's unique energy signatures. Microscopic nanotechnological networks began to interpret the complex information patterns, creating a two-way dialogue that transcended traditional communication methods. Hours turned into days, and the understanding deepened. Marcus discovered that the creature, or more accurately, the planetary intelligence, responded to intention more than direct action. Aggressive movements or defensive postures would trigger complex defensive responses, but approach with genuine curiosity, and the environment would become remarkably receptive. Scientific teams monitoring the mission from distant research stations were bewildered. The data streams coming from Marcus's expedition defied every existing model of planetary exploration. What should have been a mission of certain destruction had transformed into the most complex first contact scenario in galactic history. The communication method evolved rapidly. Marcus realized that language was too limited a concept. What was happening was a complex exchange of information that incorporated environmental conditions, molecular interactions, and something that bordered on pure consciousness. Each interaction was simultaneously a conversation, a survival strategy, and a scientific breakthrough. Survival became a collaborative process. The planetary intelligence began to modify the immediate environment, creating pockets of stability that allowed Marcus to explore more deeply. Toxic atmospheric conditions would momentarily clear, crystalline formations would shift to create pathways, and energy barriers would reconfigure to provide protection. Marcus's suit recorded everything: thermal signatures, molecular interactions, energy pattern shifts. Each data point was a revelation. The planetary intelligence seemed to be learning as much about him as he was learning about it. What had begun as a potential confrontation was transforming into something unprecedented, a mutual exploration of understanding. As the first extended planetary rotation completed, Marcus had accumulated more scientific data than all previous expeditions combined. The communication method they had developed existed beyond traditional scientific understanding. It was a dance of mutual curiosity, a complex dialogue that transcended species, technology, and conventional definitions of intelligence. Sigma-9 had been known as a planet of destruction, but Marcus was proving it was something far more remarkable, a living, intelligent system waiting to be understood. Each moment of survival was a testament to human adaptability, scientific curiosity, and the extraordinary potential of genuine communication. The mission had changed from an impossible exploration to something far more profound, a dialogue with an entirely new form of intelligence. The connection defied every established scientific protocol. What Marcus experienced wasn't domestication or control. It was a profound, symbiotic relationship that challenged fundamental understanding of intelligence, communication, and interspecies interaction. As planetary rotations passed, the boundary between observer and observed began to blur. The planetary intelligence, a complex network of interconnected energy and matter, started to modify its environment in ways that suggested not just awareness, but a form of collaborative intention. Crystalline structures would reshape themselves to provide Marcus with safer exploration routes. Atmospheric conditions would momentarily stabilize, creating pockets of breathable environment that seemed deliberately crafted. Marcus's scientific logs became increasingly complex. Each entry was less a traditional mission report and more a philosophical exploration of consciousness. The planetary intelligence didn't communicate through words or traditional signals. Instead, it spoke through environmental modifications, complex mathematical patterns, and intricate energy exchanges that suggested a form of intelligence far beyond biological comprehension. The research teams monitoring the mission struggled to interpret the incoming data. Standard cynobiological classification systems completely broke down. This wasn't a simple first contact scenario. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could mean. The planetary network responded to Marcus with a curiosity that mirrored his own scientific approach. Careful analysis revealed layers of communication that transcended physical interaction. The creature, if it could be called a creature, was simultaneously a living ecosystem, a communication network, and something that bordered on pure information. Its responses to Marcus were nuanced, adaptive, and increasingly sophisticated with each interaction. Personal survival became a secondary consideration to the scientific breakthrough unfolding. Marcus realized he was participating in something far more significant than a standard exploration mission. This was a dialogue between two fundamentally different forms of intelligence, each learning from the other in real time. The environmental suit became more than a protective device. It transformed into a complex communication interface, its adaptive technologies creating a bridge between human technological understanding and the planet's unique intelligence. Microscopic nanotechnological networks interpreted complex information patterns, translating environmental shifts into comprehensible data streams. What emerged was a relationship of mutual exploration. The planetary intelligence seemed to study Marcus with the same intensity he studied it. Energy patterns would shift in response to his movements, creating complex geometric representations that suggested a form of communication far more sophisticated than any previously documented interspecies interaction. Survival became a collaborative process. The environment would subtly modify itself to accommodate Marcus's exploration. Toxic atmospheric conditions would momentarily clear. Dangerous geological formations would reshape, creating safe pathways. Energy barriers would reconfigure to provide protection. suggesting an intelligence that was not just aware of his presence, but actively working to facilitate his exploration. The research teams watching from distant monitoring stations were utterly captivated. The data streams defied every existing scientific model. What should have been a mission of certain destruction had transformed into the most complex first contact scenario in galactic history. Marcus wasn't just surviving. He was establishing a form of communication that challenged fundamental understanding of intelligence. Communication happened on multiple levels simultaneously. Molecular interactions, energy pattern shifts, environmental modifications, each became a language more complex than any spoken words. The planetary intelligence seemed to be learning as much about Marcus as he was learning about it. What had begun as a potential confrontation was transforming into something unprecedented, a mutual exploration of understanding. Marcus's background in xenobiology proved crucial. Where other explorers would have seen a threat, he saw a complex system of communication. He developed an approach that went beyond traditional scientific protocols. It wasn't about sending messages or collecting data. It was about creating a shared understanding that transcended species, technology, and conventional definitions of intelligence. Each moment of interaction revealed new layers of complexity. The planetary intelligence wasn't a single entity, but a complex network of interconnected energy patterns and molecular structures. Its communication transcended linguistic boundaries, existing simultaneously as mathematical equations, environmental responses, and something that bordered on pure information exchange. As the mission progressed, the line between exploration and communication became increasingly blurred. Marcus was no longer just a scientific observer. He had become a participant in a dialogue more profound than any previous interspecies interaction. Sigma-9 was revealing itself not as a hostile environment, but as a living, intelligent system waiting to be understood. The unexpected connection represented something far more significant than a scientific breakthrough. It was a testament to the power of genuine curiosity, the potential of communication beyond traditional boundaries, and the extraordinary possibility of finding understanding in the most unexpected places. The preparation for departure was unlike any previous planetary extraction in galactic history. Marcus's ship became a testament to the extraordinary connection he had forged with Sigma-9's planetary intelligence. What should have been a standard extraction procedure transformed into a complex negotiation between human technology and a living planetary system. Preliminary communication protocols proved inadequate. The planetary intelligence seemed reluctant to allow separation, creating subtle environmental challenges that tested the ship's adaptive capabilities. Crystalline formations would momentarily interfere with navigation systems. Electromagnetic fields would fluctuate in complex patterns that suggested a form of communication, or perhaps a reluctance to let Marcus depart. Marcus understood the complexity of the moment. This wasn't a simple goodbye, but a profound transition in an unprecedented interspecies relationship. His communication modules worked overtime, translating the intricate environmental responses into comprehensible data streams. Each system modification became a delicate conversation, a mutual understanding of separation. The ship's adaptive technologies pushed the boundaries of existing engineering capabilities. Custom-designed molecular interfaces allowed for a gradual disconnection process that respected the intricate connection Marcus had established. Microscopic technological networks maintained a complex dialogue with the surrounding environment, ensuring a smooth transition that minimized disruption. Research stations across multiple star systems prepared for the mission's return. The data streams had been unprecedented, challenging every existing scientific model of planetary exploration, first contact, and interspecies communication. Preliminary analysis suggested that Marcus had not just survived an impossible mission, but had fundamentally redefined the understanding of planetary intelligence. As the ship began its extraction sequence, the planetary environment responded in ways that defied conventional scientific understanding. Protective energy barriers would momentarily synchronize with the ship's systems. Atmospheric conditions would adjust, creating optimal launch conditions that seemed deliberately engineered. It was as if Sigma-9 was actively participating in Marcus's departure. The companion, the complex living entity that had formed a connection with Marcus, began to manifest in a form that could potentially survive space travel. Molecular structures would shift and reconfigure, creating a stable configuration that suggested an unprecedented level of adaptive intelligence. What had begun as a planetary intelligence was now preparing to become something more. Communication transcended traditional technological boundaries. Energy patterns would pulse in complex rhythms, creating mathematical representations that suggested a deep emotional connection. The research teams monitoring the extraction could only watch in awe as something entirely new unfolded before their sensors. Galactic diplomatic channels buzzed with anticipation. This was more than a scientific mission. It was a fundamental reimagining of interspecies communication. Marcus had done what no previous exploration team had achieved. He had transformed a mission of certain destruction into a profound dialogue with an entirely new form of intelligence. The ship's interior underwent remarkable transformations. Adaptive environmental systems created spaces that could accommodate the complex molecular structure of Marcus's companion. Standard life support protocols became obsolete, replaced by a more dynamic, responsive system that blurred the lines between technological support and living interaction. Research teams prepared comprehensive quarantine and analysis protocols. But traditional scientific approaches seemed woefully inadequate. The entity accompanying Marcus defied every existing classification system. It was simultaneously a living organism, a communication network, and something that bordered on pure information. As the ship prepared to break planetary orbit, Marcus documented the final moments of connection. His logs became a philosophical exploration of consciousness, communication, and the potential for understanding beyond traditional biological boundaries. Each data stream was a revelation, challenging fundamental understanding of intelligence and existence. The extraction wasn't a separation. It was a transformation. The planetary intelligence of Sigma-9 seemed to extend beyond its original environment, creating a complex network that would travel with Marcus. Molecular structures would shift and reconfigure, maintaining a connection that transcended physical limitations. Galactic observation stations tracked the ship's progress with unprecedented intensity. The data streams defied existing scientific models. Marcus had not just survived an impossible mission. He had established a form of communication that fundamentally challenged understanding of intelligence, consciousness, and interspecies interaction. As the ship entered faster-than-light travel, the true complexity of the journey became apparent. The companion wasn't just a passenger, it was an active participant in the voyage. Technological systems would respond to its presence, creating a symbiotic relationship that blurred the lines between biological and technological intelligence. The return journey represented more than a scientific expedition. It was a testament to human curiosity, the potential of genuine communication, and the extraordinary possibility of finding understanding in the most unexpected places. The research facility stood as a marvel of galactic scientific collaboration. Multiple species worked side by side, their combined technological capabilities pushed to the absolute limit by the data Marcus had brought back from Sigma-9. The containment and analysis chamber was unlike any previous research environment, a testament to the extraordinary nature of the mission. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead xenobiological researcher, stood at the center of a holographic data matrix that seemed to breathe with living information. Her team represented the most advanced scientific minds from 12 different galactic civilizations. Each researcher brought unique perspectives, yet all were humbled by the complexity of the data streaming from Marcus's mission logs. The preliminary analysis challenged every existing scientific paradigm. What had been documented was not simply a first contact scenario, but a fundamental reimagining of intelligence itself. The entity from Sigma-9 defied every known classification system. It existed simultaneously as an environmental network, a communication system, and a form of consciousness that transcended traditional understanding. Molecular analysis revealed layers of complexity that left researchers speechless. The companion's molecular structure was not a fixed entity, but a dynamic system of information exchange. Each scan produced results that seemed to change even as they were being observed. Traditional scanning methods became obsolete, replaced by adaptive technologies that could respond to the entity's constant transformation. Quantum entanglement scanners detected communication patterns that suggested a level of intelligence far beyond biological comprehension. The entity seemed to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, its communication methods transcending linear understanding. What appeared to be random molecular shifts were actually complex information exchanges that would take decades to begin to comprehend. Marcus became an integral part of the research process. His first-hand experience provided context that no scanning technology could capture. He described the connection with Sigma-9 not as a scientific observation, but as a profound dialogue of mutual understanding. Each interview session became a groundbreaking exploration of interspecies communication. The research facility became a hub of unprecedented scientific activity. Diplomatic channels from multiple star systems converged to understand the implications of the mission. This was more than a scientific breakthrough. It was a potential revolution in understanding consciousness, communication, and the nature of intelligence itself. Computational systems worked overtime, attempting to process the massive amount of data. Traditional analysis methods proved inadequate. The research team developed entirely new computational models just to begin understanding the information Marcus had brought back. Each new insight opened up multiple additional questions. The companion's adaptive capabilities continued to surprise researchers. It could modify its molecular structure in response to environmental conditions, communication attempts, and even emotional states of the researchers around it. What had begun as a planetary intelligence was demonstrating capabilities that suggested a form of consciousness far more complex than any previously documented life form. Diplomatic representatives watched the research with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The mission to Sigma-9 had the potential to reshape fundamental understanding of exploration, communication, and the potential for interspecies interaction. Marcus had done more than survive an impossible mission. He had opened a door to an entirely new way of understanding intelligence. Genetic and molecular researchers discovered something even more extraordinary. The companion seemed capable of storing and transmitting information in ways that went beyond traditional biological or technological communication methods. Each molecular interaction was simultaneously a communication, a memory storage, and a potential evolutionary adaptation. The research team developed specialized communication interfaces. Traditional language became obsolete. Instead, they created multi-dimensional communication systems that could begin to interpret the complex information exchanges that Marcus had experienced on Sigma-9. Each breakthrough was accompanied by multiple new questions. Psychological evaluations of Marcus revealed something equally fascinating. His experience had fundamentally altered his perception of intelligence and communication. He described the connection with Sigma-9 not as a scientific observation, but as a profound dialogue that transcended traditional understanding of consciousness. As weeks turned into months, the research continued. Each day brought new revelations, new challenges to existing scientific understanding. The mission to Sigma-9 was transforming from a singular expedition into a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could mean. The scientific community stood at the precipice of a new understanding. Marcus's mission had proven that the universe was far more complex, far more interconnected, and far more wonderful than anyone had previously imagined. What had begun as an impossible exploration had become a gateway to an entirely new way of understanding existence itself. The Galactic Diplomatic Council chamber was unlike any previous assembly. Representatives from 12 different stellar civilizations sat in a circular configuration, their holographic interfaces pulsing with a complexity that reflected the unprecedented nature of Marcus's mission. The traditional protocols of first contact seemed woefully inadequate in the face of what had been discovered on Sigma-9. Ambassador Krell from the Centauri Collective spoke first, his multifaceted communication appendages shifting with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "We are confronting a fundamental reimagining of interspecies communication," he announced, his translator rendering the words with clinical precision. Marcus has not simply discovered a new life form. He has demonstrated a method of communication that challenges every existing diplomatic framework. The holographic displays came alive with data streams that defied traditional interpretation. What Marcus had brought back was more than scientific information. It was a potential paradigm shift in understanding intelligence, communication, and the very nature of consciousness. Each diplomatic representative struggled to comprehend the full implications of the mission. Representatives from the quantum diplomatic networks proposed entirely new communication protocols. Traditional linguistic approaches became obsolete. Instead, they developed multi-dimensional communication interfaces that could begin to interpret the complex information exchanges observed during Marcus's expedition. Each proposed protocol was more revolutionary than the last. The legal implications were equally complex. How does one establish diplomatic relations with a planetary intelligence that exists simultaneously as an environmental network, a communication system, and a form of consciousness? Traditional concepts of sovereignty, communication, and interspecies interaction became meaningless in the face of this new understanding. Marcus sat at the center of the diplomatic assembly, his presence both a catalyst and a subject of intense scrutiny. He had become more than an explorer. He was a bridge between fundamentally different forms of intelligence. His first-hand accounts challenged everything the diplomatic representatives thought they understood about exploration and communication. Scientific advisors presented findings that left the diplomatic representatives stunned. The companion from Sigma-9 demonstrated capabilities that went far beyond any previous understanding of intelligent life. It could modify its molecular structure in response to environmental conditions, communication attempts, and even emotional states of those around it. The economic implications were equally profound. Multiple stellar civilizations saw potential for unprecedented technological and scientific advancements. The adaptive capabilities of the Sigma-9 intelligence suggested breakthroughs in communication technologies, environmental adaptation, and fundamental understanding of consciousness itself. Philosophical debates erupted across the chamber. What did this discovery mean for existing understanding of intelligence? The traditional boundaries between biological and technological intelligence had been completely dismantled. Marcus's mission suggested a form of communication and intelligence that transcended all previous classifications. Defensive strategists from multiple civilizations struggled with a new paradigm. The entity from Sigma-9 was not a threat to be contained, but a potential partner in understanding. Traditional concepts of planetary defense became obsolete in the face of an intelligence that could communicate and adapt in ways previously unimagined. The cultural exchange potential seemed limitless. Research teams proposed entire new fields of study: quantum communication, multidimensional intelligence interaction, and environmental consciousness communication. Each proposal pushed the boundaries of existing scientific and diplomatic understanding. Marcus became the focal point of intense diplomatic scrutiny. His ability to establish communication with the Sigma-9 intelligence suggested capabilities that went far beyond traditional exploratory training. He had demonstrated a form of empathy, curiosity, and communication that challenged fundamental understanding of interspecies interaction. As the diplomatic session progressed, it became clear that this was more than a scientific discovery. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could mean. The mission to Sigma-9 had opened a door to an entirely new way of understanding existence, communication, and the potential for understanding across seemingly insurmountable differences. The Galactic Diplomatic Council faced a choice. They could approach this discovery with fear and restriction, or with openness and genuine curiosity. Marcus's mission had proven that the universe was far more complex, far more interconnected, and far more wonderful than anyone had previously imagined. By the session's conclusion, one thing became clear. The mission to Sigma-9 was not an end, but a beginning. Humanity had demonstrated a capacity for communication and understanding that went far beyond traditional exploratory boundaries. The diplomatic landscape would never be the same again. The research vessel stood as a testament to humanity's most extraordinary achievement. Where previous exploration missions had been defined by conquest or scientific observation, this represented something entirely new, a collaborative journey of mutual understanding. Marcus stood at the observation deck, watching as the companion from Sigma-9 moved through the ship's specialized environment, its molecular structure shifting in complex patterns that continued to challenge scientific understanding. The journey became more than a simple transportation. It was a continuous dialogue, a living demonstration of the potential for communication beyond traditional boundaries. The ship's adaptive systems had been completely redesigned, creating an environment that was simultaneously a research facility, a communication interface, and a living space that responded to the needs of both human and planetary intelligence. Researchers from multiple stellar civilizations worked alongside Marcus, their collaborative efforts pushing the boundaries of scientific exploration. The companion from Sigma-9 was no longer viewed as a specimen to be studied, but as a partner in a profound journey of discovery. Each moment brought new revelations, new ways of understanding communication, consciousness, and the fundamental nature of intelligence. The technological innovations emerged at an unprecedented rate. The adaptive capabilities demonstrated by the Sigma-9 intelligence suggested breakthroughs in environmental adaptation, communication technologies, and understanding of complex systems. Medical researchers saw potential for revolutionary treatments. Environmental scientists explored new methods of planetary restoration. Technological engineers reimagined entire systems of design and communication. Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. What had begun as an impossible mission had transformed into a fundamental reimagining of exploration itself. The traditional boundaries between observer and observed, between different forms of intelligence, had completely dissolved. Communication was no longer about transmission of information, but about genuine understanding. The companion continued to surprise researchers with its adaptive capabilities. It could modify its molecular structure in response to environmental conditions, communication attempts, and even emotional states of those around it. What had begun as a planetary intelligence was demonstrating a form of consciousness that defied all previous scientific classification. Diplomatic channels across multiple star systems watched the mission with a mixture of excitement and profound respect. Marcus had proven that exploration was not about conquest or scientific observation, but about genuine connection. The mission to Sigma-9 had opened a door to an entirely new way of understanding existence, communication, and the potential for understanding across seemingly insurmountable differences. Educational institutions began developing entirely new fields of study. Quantum communication, multidimensional intelligence interaction, and environmental consciousness became legitimate areas of academic research. Students from multiple species studied Marcus's mission as a turning point in understanding intelligence and communication. The journey became a living demonstration of the potential for interspecies understanding. Traditional concepts of first contact, of exploration, of intelligence itself were being rewritten with each passing moment. The companion from Sigma-9 was not a passive subject of study, but an active participant in a profound dialogue of mutual discovery. Technological innovations emerged that seemed to border on the miraculous. Communication interfaces that could translate complex multidimensional information exchanges. Adaptive environmental systems that could respond to the most intricate molecular changes. Methods of understanding that went far beyond traditional scientific observation. Marcus understood that this was more than a scientific mission. It was a testament to the power of genuine curiosity, of approaching the unknown with respect and openness. The traditional human traits of adaptability, empathy, and willingness to understand had proven to be the most powerful tools of exploration. As the research vessel continued its journey, it became clear that the mission to Sigma-9 was not an end, but a beginning. Humanity had demonstrated a capacity for communication and understanding that went far beyond traditional exploratory boundaries. The companion from Sigma-9 was not a conquered subject, but a partner in a journey of mutual discovery. The scientific community began to reimagine the very concept of exploration. It was no longer about collecting data or making observations. It was about creating genuine connections, about understanding the profound complexity of intelligence in all its potential forms. Marcus's mission had proven that the universe was far more wonderful, far more complex, and far more interconnected than anyone had previously imagined. As stellar systems passed outside the observation deck, Marcus reflected on the journey. What had begun as an impossible mission had transformed into a fundamental reimagining of what exploration could mean. The companion from Sigma 9 moved beside him, its molecular structure shifting in patterns that suggested a deep, profound connection, a living testament to the extraordinary potential of genuine understanding.